The Quebec Gay Archives, home to over 1,000 periodicals, 2,000 books, 50,000 photos, 2,000 posters, 1,200 videos, across more than 200 archival fonds and collections, encompassing every aspect of gender and sexuality. A team of professional archivists and volunteers who preserve our cultures, our struggles, and who are devoted to the transmission of our collective memory. Come discover 150 years of LGBTQ history in Quebec. The Quebec Gay Archives, memory of LGBTQ2S+ communities since 1983. Support the Quebec Gay Archives. Make a donation today. Hello everyone, and welcome to this short presentation on the Archives Gaie du Québec, or the AGQ. My name is Simone. I work as an archivist here. So I'll tell you a little bit today in this presentation, a little bit about the history and mandate of the Archives Gaie du Québec, about our mission as a community archive, and also I'll give you a little overview of the collections that are being preserved at the AGQ. So what you've just seen is a little preview of it that we did as part of a promotional campaign last year. I'll delve a little bit deeper further in this presentation. The AGQ was founded in 1983 by Jacques Prince and Ross Higgins. So Jacques back then was a student in information science and was working at the National Archives, and Ross was studying anthropology with a specialty in gay and lesbian movements. And in their respective fields, they found a lack of documentation on gays and lesbians, and they saw an opportunity to create a space for that. Another foundational factor for the creation of the AGQ was, of course, the AIDS crisis that was just beginning in the early 80s. But there was already a strong sense of solidarity taking place in the gay community, but more importantly, an urgency to preserve the memory of those who were dying, and the inaction of the government, which reinforced the importance of having a space to conserve this type of archive. So documentation that pertains to the AIDS crisis or of the experience of living with HIV/AIDS is still today what constitutes most of the collection at the Archives Gaie du Québec. This is the team 10 years later at the Pride March in Montreal. So this year in 2023, the AGQ is celebrating its 40th anniversary. And still today, it is a non-profit community organization, which means it was built from the ground up by volunteers and members of the community, and that relies heavily upon donations, government grants, and volunteering still today. As far as I know, it is also the largest LGBTQ+ archive in the French-speaking world. So I took a few photos of the premises. Those are from 2021. It still looks very similar. This is a consultation room. This is where you would be seated if you came to do some research. This is also the space where we work on our day-to-day tasks, where we do the processing of archives. We have great big windows. It's a beautiful space. This is from the other side. You can see posters on the left, and you can also see on the ceiling these colored balls that were all over St. Catherine Street in the village a few years ago. So back in the day, these were all just boxes in Ross Higgins' apartment, and the archives have moved 3 or 4 times since, each time bigger and bigger location. This is the biggest location yet. We are located in the heart of the gay village in Montreal, on Atatagan Street. This is to give you just a little idea of the space that we have. Actually, the back room here has changed a bit since I took these shots. So this used to be the library, but we did a triage and donated about 3/4 of it. And we've decided to dedicate the small room at the back to exhibitions. And we're currently working on having a rotation of exhibits of either archives or artwork created from archival research in our collections. So last summer in this room and in the front room on the wall there, we had an exhibition of AIDS posters from across the world, which happened at the same time as Pride Month in Montreal, and also, incidentally, the International AIDS Conference, which took place in this city last year. And the exhibition was a great success. We've never had that many people at the archives before, and now more visitor means more people are not only more aware of our existence, but also of the physical space. Here are a few shots as well. Our mandate is to acquire, conserve, and disseminate any document, be it text, iconography, audiovisual, or object, which reflects the history and activities of LGBTQ2S+ communities in Quebec. We are not limited to public figures or organization. It also includes personal experience to a certain extent. We also prioritize Quebec Francophone history because the organization was born out of a Quebec nationalist movement in the 70s and 80s, but we're not exclusive to Francophone material, as there's a rich queer Anglophone history and community in Montreal. More specifically, the AGQ has an active role in two things. So first, promoting gender and sexual diversity through preservation of LGBTQ+ archives, and second, in promoting research on gender and sexual diversity. How we acquire archives is through donations from members of the community. Across 40 years, the archives have built a collection of over 200 fonds d'archives related to the work of prominent LGBTQ folks, such as politicians, artists, and activists, and organizations, as well as collections of posters, periodicals, books, newspapers, zines, and various ephemera, which I will show you a bit later. Well, first, I'll give you a little tour. So I'll give you a few examples of our most prominent collections, sort of a little show and tell. Here is the Association pour les droits des Gaie du Québec, or ADGQ, an organization that was created in the aftermath of the 1977 police raid at the gay bars Trucks and Mystique on Stanley Street. And the Trucks raid is seen by many people sort of the Quebec Stonewall, as it was a catalyst in bringing together the gay community in Montreal through political organizations such as the ADGQ. This collection has many photos of the era and also administrative documents of the organization. Here's the Michael Hendricks and René Leboeuf collection. Hendricks and Leboeuf were the first same-sex couple to be legally married in Quebec in 2004. They were also heavily involved with the Montreal chapter of ACT UP, which had a brief existence between 1990 and 1993. And this collection has pretty iconic photos. We also have the original ACT UP banners that were used in demos. Here's an excerpt from a commemorative video that was made last summer. Arc-en-Ciel d'Afrique collection. Arc-en-Ciel d'Afrique, these documents donated in 2019, a collection that holds documentation related to this Afro-Caribbean LGBTQ+ organization that no longer exists today, but whose mandate was to provide a space for LGBTQ folks of Afro-Caribbean descent here in Montreal, and also to provide support for LGBTQ folks outside of the country. There's also the Massimadi Film Festival, which was affiliated to the organization that still exists today. Here's the Irène Demchuk Fond, as her on the right there, during a public hearing of the Quebec Human Rights Commission. She was an essential agent for the legal recognition of same-sex couples and same-sex parenthood in Quebec. So the Arc-en-Ciel d'Afrique collection, as well as the Irène Demchuk collection, they are one of the only few collections related to BIPOC and women at the AGQ. So although our mandate covers all aspects of LGBTQ+ experience, there's still a lot of work that is being currently undertaken in order to be more representative of all LGBTQ+ communities. You will find most lesbian documentation at our sister organization, the Archives lesbiennes du Québec. La Monroe and Gilda, two important figures in the history of female impersonation. On the left here is Armand Monroe, in the middle with two drag queens at the Downbeat Club on Peel Street in 1957. This bar was of great importance in the history of LGBTQ+ communities in Montreal. And on the right here is Gilda, who was a mythical figure in female impersonation history in Quebec, France, and the United States, of which we've inherited scrapbooks full of clippings and photos, also a few paintings. Here's a little look at them. I've spoken about celebrities and famous events, but as I've mentioned earlier, keeping traces of personal queer experience is also part of the AGQ's mandate. Preserving archives of the lesser known or the more day-to-day is particularly relevant in an organization with a mandate such as the AGQ, which is specifically directed towards marginalized voices, and in many cases of short-lived organizations or of people who died before their work became public. So this is the case, I think, of Luc Caron and Guy Fréchette. They were authors, poets, artists who died of HIV/AIDS related causes in the 90s, and of which we've never seen the career to their full potential. These collections are currently the object of a lot of research, so there's certainly some interest on how to create and build upon the work of these lesser-known artists. Bars, cafes, clubs, always of great interest for research in the fields of sexuality. You'll find traces of these locations and what they have meant throughout the years in terms of community building across many collections. As I've mentioned earlier, there are also collections that are a bit more eclectic in terms of content. So I thought I'd show you a few shots I took. So pins, buttons, whistles on the left here. Here's material from the poster collection. And some more ephemera. Here are some zines from a collection of over 200 publications that were donated from a private collection. As well as some tabloids. As far as I know, you'll have a hard time finding yellow press collections like this in any other archive. So I think the AGQ plays sort of a little niche role in that sense, at least in the province. Periodicals, to the right there in the photo, you see our wall of periodicals. So many titles from Quebec and international sources. These are often the first step into archival material for many researchers. This collection is very often solicited. And audiovisual material. Only part of it is digitized. So here's a short documentary that was produced after the truck's arrests. And here, just a little short tidbit of an AIDS awareness video that was digitized from the VHS collection. Both of these fairly representative of the audiovisual collections. In addition to those, there are many also student thesis, thematic files. We are also beginning to receive more digital documents, which will be a challenge in the upcoming years considering the current resources that we have. The AGQ occasionally have access to grants that allow us to disseminate these archives, especially during the summer and Pride festivities. These two here are exhibitions that were produced by the AGQ. On the right there, Stories of LGBTQ2S+ Communities is a more of a traditional timeline that was exhibited at Cinéma du Parc in 2019. It is also available in digital form on our website. And on the left here, The Walls Have Ears, a more of an interactive and more intimate take on traditional mapping projects that incorporates audio testimonials, also available on our website. We also work with partners in exhibiting our archives through loans. So next year, some ACT UP Montreal banners will be exhibited at the Musée de la Civilisation in Quebec and City. We also work with partners in exhibiting our archive through loans. Next summer, some ACT UP Montreal banners will be exhibited at the Musée de la Civilisation in Quebec City, as well as some bar signs, periodicals, and newspaper clippings. And as I've mentioned previously also, the space where we work and where archives are conserved is also slowly becoming also a space to display archives and creative work based on these archives. Research remains the main activity at the archives. Montreal is a big university city, 4 large ones, and academic researchers are still the main users of the archives. So from various fields in social sciences, mostly history, gender and sexuality studies, and anthropology, and also from Montreal and outside of the province and from other countries as well. We also organize every so often cultural mediation activities, such as introductions to archival research for artists or Wikipedia editing events. So along with these events, academic research remains the main way the archives create meaning. So I hope this overview of the AGQ's mandate and collections was interesting to you, made you curious to know more about LGBTQ+ archives in Quebec. For those of you who are in Montreal, please do not hesitate to make an appointment for a visit. And my contact details are here if you have any questions now or questions you'd rather ask by email. It'd be my pleasure to answer you. So thank you so much.